Please subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos.
Welcome back to the channel, everybody, and a brand new season of adventure with Tracks4Africa and our trusty little Jimny.
Yes, it's been totally amazing. We've traveled for the last 3.5 weeks and we've covered the entire west coast of South Africa, from the rocks at the very, very tip on the west coast at the Cape of Good Hope, right the way through to the Gariep River mouth at Alexander Bay. Now, of course, there are places that you cannot access the west coast. There are private game reserves, there's private land, and there's also diamond areas like between Kommetjie and Honneklip Bay, and that's the west coast diamond area, and of course members of the public are not allowed in there.
It's been an incredible adventure in that we have battled the very, very thick deep sands of the Namakwa National Park, and also the lashing winds that typically hit the west coast during the autumn and the summer months.
Yeah, I think it's been one of the most challenging seasons to film because literally every morning we woke up, there was either fog or very, very strong winds when the fog cleared. Typically by lunchtime the fog was clear, but then the winds came through. So there weren't a lot of opportunities for us to track the vehicle with our drone for a number of reasons. Some of it, of course, is national park, and you're not allowed to fly drones in national park, like West Coast National Park, Table Mountain National Park, Namakwa National Park. And the rest of it, when we could fly, was just howling winds, so it made it very, very difficult. Even trying to shoot some long lens stuff, trying to hold the lens in the wind was nearly impossible. But nonetheless, we had an incredible time, and I hope you enjoy this series. And let's get started with episode 1, where we are right down on the Cape Peninsula, where the west coast of South Africa truly starts.
To truly find the start of the west coast of South Africa, you have to travel down to the southwesternmost tip of Africa, called the Cape of Good Hope, or Cape Point Nature Reserve to locals. It's all part of the Table Mountain National Park, starting from Signal Hill and ending right down at Cape Point. The gates open at 6 a.m, which is the best time to access the park to avoid crowds and tour buses heading down to the iconic Cape of Good Hope signboard. It's on these west-facing sea cliffs where our adventure begins.
A wonderful good morning from the Cape of Good Hope. We are walking along the little hiking path that goes right to the edge of the cliff where the west coast of South Africa really starts. When people think of the west coast, they think of Langebaan, Paternoster, Honneklip Bay, Lambert's Bay, Eland's Bay. Yes, of course, that is the west coast. But where does it truly start? So we've come down to the Cape of Good Hope, and there's a section of rock on the hiking path that is the absolute definitive line of the west coast of South Africa, where it actually starts. Because anything around the corner is south, and further around the corner is False Bay, and that's the east coast. So the west coast starts on the rocks we're about to go to right now.
There's something so lovely about seeing wildlife at the coast. And we were fortunate in that we saw zebra and ostrich. The vegetation is looking incredible, lots of pin cushions out. And we are now doing a short hike, and we are the only people in the reserve at this point. So there's real merit in being out early in the day.
This is the start of the west coast of South Africa.
It was time to drive around the reserve and explore the many roads and viewing points overlooking the coast. Maybe we'd see a bit more game, like eland, bontebok, or perhaps the Cape Mountain zebra again. took the road right around the reserve to Olifantsbos Point to take a short hike to find the remains of the SS Thomas Tucker shipwreck, which ran aground in heavy fog in November 1942. 82 years later, ironically, the early morning fog had other plans for us too, in that we could not complete our mission.
So the sun is coming out, but unfortunately the mist just rolled in thicker and thicker until eventually we couldn't even see the beach or the cottage. So we're going to not go and try and find Thomas Tucker shipwreck. We're going to continue to explore the reserve. Unfortunately, that's the way it goes on the west coast.
The Cape Point Nature Reserve has plenty of fauna and flora, but it's best to get into the reserve early before most of the self-drive tourists and tour buses arrive, usually after 8 a.m. Leaving the Cape of Good Hope, we travel northwest on the M65 towards Kommetjie via Scarborough and Misty Cliffs, true to its name on this day. As we approach Noordhoek, Chapman's Peak and Hout Bay, we move into the more densely populated Atlantic Seaboard. This 20-kilometer stretch of exclusive coastline starts at Hout Bay and ends in Murley Point close to the waterfront. It's home to an abundance of multi-million rand homes and 5-star luxury boutique hotels. The Atlantic Seaboard is the Monaco of the Cape Peninsula. The west coast along the Cape Peninsula is well known for its southeasterly and southwesterly winds. So if you're a wind sports enthusiast, the west coast is paradise. Join us in the next episode where we continue further up the coast into the West Coast National Park, visit Langebaan, Paternoster, and the incredible Veldrift and Port Owen.